Okay, so you're prepping for a Scrum Master interview. Let's be real, it can be a little nerve-wracking, right? You're excited about the opportunity, but there's always that one question lurking in the shadows, the one that can make or break it all.
You're talking about the dreaded sell me on Scrum question.
Yeah, exactly. It's not enough to just rattle off definitions. You have to show them you really get it, You understand the why, the how, the real-world impact, and that's exactly what we're diving deep into today.
We're going to equip you with an answer that goes beyond those typical buzzwords.
We're talking real-world examples from companies that are absolutely crushing it with Scrum.
Companies like Spotify,
ING Bank,
Microsoft.
even John Deere. Talk about some heavy hitters.
We're not just picking random companies here. They represent a diverse range of industries, showing just how versatile Scrum can be.
We'll unpack what they did, why it worked, and how you can use these examples to really impress any hiring manager.
That's right. This is about giving you the tools to not just answer the question, but to really knock it out of the park.
So first things first, you've got to define Scrum, right?
Absolutely. But skip that robotic textbook definition.
Right. Nobody wants to hear that.
Instead, paint a picture. Explain Scrum as a framework that empowers teams to collaborate, adapt, and deliver value incrementally. And here's the kicker: keep those stakeholder goals front and center.
So it's not just about following a set of rules. It's about understanding the why behind them and how those rules drive real results.
Exactly. You're setting the stage for why Scrum is so effective in today's complex business world, right from the get-go.
Okay, got it. Definition down. Now for the fun part, the examples.
Let's kick things off with Spotify.
Everyone knows Spotify is practically a cultural phenomenon at this point. But what's really cool is how they use Scrum to drive innovation.
Their squads model is legendary in Agile circles. It's a perfect illustration of how Scrum empowers teams to be customer-centric and iterate rapidly.
And it's not just theory, right? It leads to real, tangible outcomes.
Absolutely.
Okay, give me an example, something concrete.
Think about Discover Weekly, that personalized playlist that somehow just knows your music tastes better than you do.
Oh yeah, I love Discover Weekly.
Yeah.
But how does that connect to Scrum?
Spotify was able to quickly develop and launch Discover Weekly as a minimum viable product using Scrum. They got it into users' hands fast, gathered feedback, and then iterated through sprints to continuously refine and improve it.
So it's not just about speed, it's about adaptability and continuous improvement. Always focused on delivering a product that users love.
Spot on. Spotify's success with Discover Weekly is directly tied to their Scrum-driven approach. And that's a story you can tell in your interview to really showcase your understanding.
All right, Spotify, check. Now let's switch gears completely and talk about banking. ING Bank, to be precise. Now, I'm not a finance guru or anything, but when I hear a 40% reduction in time to market, that definitely gets my attention.
It's a powerful statistic, and it really highlights the quantifiable benefits of Scrum.
So it's not just magic, right? There's a method to the madness.
Absolutely. ING completely restructured their teams and embraced Agile principles, allowing them to respond to the rapidly evolving digital banking landscape. They were able to deliver value at an unprecedented pace.
So by adopting Scrum, they basically injected a dose of agility into a traditionally rigid system, allowing them to stay ahead of the curve in a super competitive industry.
That's a great way to put it. You've captured the essence of ING's transformation and how Scrum played that key role.
Okay, ING Bank, noted. Now let's move on to something a little closer to home for many of us software development. Microsoft Office 365, to be specific.
Ah, yes. This is a fantastic example of how Scrum facilitates continuous improvement and delivery in a complex software environment. That shift to a cloud-based subscription model was a massive undertaking. It required constant updates and releases.
Right, it was a huge change. So how did Scrum help them navigate all that?
Scrum provided the framework to manage that complexity, breaking development down into smaller sprints, embracing an iterative approach. Microsoft was able to constantly deliver value and respond to user feedback quickly.
So it's almost like they flipped the traditional software development model on its head. Instead of these long, drawn-out release cycles, they were constantly delivering value and incorporating user feedback, making sure they were building something people actually wanted.
Exactly. And this example also subtly shows the interviewer that you understand the nuances of software development life cycles, which is a definite plus.
Okay, Spotify, ING Bank, Microsoft, they've got music streaming, finance, and software. What else is there?
Get ready for this one because our last example takes us to the world of tractors.
Tractors.
Seriously.
You heard that right. John Deere, the agricultural equipment giant, has been using Scrum to integrate IoT sensors into their farm machinery.
Okay, I'll admit that's not what I was expecting,
Yeah.
but I'm intrigued. How does Scrum fit into the world of tractors and combines? It perfectly illustrates how Scrum isn't limited to software development. It's a versatile framework applicable to any complex project that needs agility, collaboration, and continuous improvement. In John Deere's case, they used Scrum to develop and deploy precision agriculture software that helps farmers optimize their operations.
That's incredible. So by using Scrum, they were able to bring cutting-edge technology to a traditionally non-technological field. And in doing so, they revolutionized the way farmers work.
You got it. And using this example in your interview shows you're not just thinking about software. You understand the broader applicability of Scrum and that you have an adaptable mindset.
So we've got 4 amazing examples here, each showing Scrum's impact in a different area.
Yeah.
Spotify, ING, Bank, Microsoft, John Deere, they're all using Scrum to drive innovation and deliver value. But how do we tie this back to those core principles of Scrum? And more importantly, how do we make it relevant to the interview?
Well, that's what we'll be covering in part 2. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We just explored some awesome real-world examples of Scrum in action. From Spotify's personalized playlists to John Deere's high-tech tractors, it's clear Scrum is making a big impact across all sorts of industries.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see how these companies are using Scrum to drive innovation and achieve these incredible results. But I'm curious, how did these examples connect back to the core principles of Scrum? I mean, we talked about transparency, inspection, and adaptation, but how do those principles actually play out in practice?
That's the key to really selling Scrum in an interview,
Yeah.
Connecting those principles to tangible outcomes. Let's start with transparency. Think back to Spotify's squads. Everyone on the team knows what everyone else is working on, the challenges they're facing, the progress they're making.
Right.
This shared understanding, fostered by daily stand-ups and open communication, is like a hallmark of Scrum.
So transparency isn't just about using some fancy project management tool. It's about creating a culture of openness where information flows freely and everyone feels comfortable sharing their insights and concerns.
Exactly. And this transparency is crucial for effective inspection. Remember how ING Bank was able to achieve that impressive 40% reduction in time to market?
Yeah, that was pretty remarkable.
That didn't happen by accident. They were constantly inspecting their progress, evaluating their backlogs, and adapting based on market needs and customer feedback.
So it's not about setting a rigid plan and sticking to it no matter what. It's about embracing change and using data to inform decisions.
Precisely. And this leads us to adaptation. Microsoft's transition to a cloud-based model for Office 365 is a perfect example. They had to be incredibly adaptable, releasing updates and new features at a rapid pace. Scrum provided that framework for managing this complexity through iterative development and those continuous feedback loops.
So instead of being afraid of change, they embraced it as a core part of their development process. They were constantly learning, adapting, and delivering value to users in these short, manageable sprints.
Exactly. And let's not forget John Deere. They were working in a field where software development wasn't traditionally the norm, but they recognized the power of Scrum to drive innovation. They adapted the framework to fit their needs, collaborating closely with farmers to ensure their precision agriculture software was truly valuable.
It's amazing to see how Scrum can be tailored to fit different industries and challenges, from developing cutting-edge software to optimizing farming practices.
And that's a key point to emphasize in your interview. You're not just showcasing your knowledge of Scrum, you're demonstrating your ability to think critically, adapt to different contexts, and apply these principles in a way that drives real results.
This is all start to make sense. But there's one piece of the puzzle I'm still trying to wrap my head around. How do we connect all of this back to the stakeholders? We keep mentioning them, but I'm not entirely clear on how these Scrum principles specifically benefit them.
That's a great question, and it's an essential part of your answer. Remember, stakeholders are ultimately the ones who are investing in the project, and they want to see a return on that investment. Scrum is all about delivering value early and often, which aligns perfectly with stakeholder expectations.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection. But can you give me an example of how this plays out in the real world?
Absolutely. Think back to Spotify's Discover Weekly. By releasing a minimum viable product quickly, they were able to start generating value for users and for the company right away. And because they were constantly inspecting and adapting based on feedback, they ensured that the product continued to deliver value over time.
So it's not just about delivering a finished product at the end. It's about providing value throughout that entire development process.
Precisely. And because Scrum emphasizes transparency, Stakeholders are kept in the loop every step of the way. They have a clear understanding of what's being worked on, what challenges are being faced, and how their investment is being used.
This is a powerful argument for Scrum. By fostering transparency, inspection, and adaptation, you're not just building a great product, you're building trust and alignment with stakeholders, ensuring everyone is on the same page and working towards a common goal.
You've nailed it. And that's what sets Scrum apart. It's a holistic framework that benefits both the development team and the stakeholders, ultimately driving project success.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from real-world examples to those core principles and stakeholder benefits. I'm feeling a lot more confident about tackling that "sell me on Scrum" question. But is there anything else we need to consider?
There's one final touch that can really elevate your answer and make it stand out. It's about moving beyond the theoretical and making it personal.
Okay, so we've covered a ton, from those awesome real-world examples to the core principles that make Scrum so effective. And we even tied it all back to the stakeholders, which is super important. But you mentioned one last piece to this puzzle, something about making it personal.
Yeah, it's all about showcasing your genuine understanding and passion for Scrum by connecting these principles and examples to your own experience. It's like the secret sauce that takes a good answer and makes it great.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Hmm.
But I'm a little hesitant, How do I talk about my own experience without sounding like I'm bragging or, even worse, making stuff up?
It's not about bragging at all. It's about providing authentic insights that show you really understand Scrum in action. Think back to your past projects, even if they weren't officially Scrum projects. Have you ever been in a situation where transparency helped clear up a conflict? Or where inspection and adaptation led to a better outcome?
Now that you mention it, there's this one project where we're constantly hitting roadblocks because of, well, just poor communication. We were all working in silos and nobody had a clear picture of what was going on. Once we started having daily stand-ups and being more transparent about our progress, things really started to flow.
There you go. That's a perfect example. You could weave that story into your answer to illustrate how you've personally seen the power of transparency firsthand.
So instead of just saying transparency is important, I could say something like, in my experience, I found that creating a culture of transparency, through daily stand-ups and open communication, it's crucial for building trust, resolving conflicts, and ultimately delivering a successful project.
Exactly. By bringing in your personal experience, you're not just reciting textbook stuff. You're demonstrating a real understanding and a passion for Scrum, and that's what's going to resonate with the interviewer.
Okay, that makes sense. But what if I haven't actually been working as a Scrum Master for that long? I might not have a ton of professional examples to pull from.
That's totally fine. Think outside the box a little. Have you ever collaborated on a group project where you had to adapt to changing requirements or overcome unexpected challenges? Maybe you organized a community event or volunteered for a nonprofit where flexibility and teamwork were really important.
Ah, I see. It's about highlighting those core Scrum principles in action, even if they weren't explicitly labeled as Scrum.
Exactly. The key is to showcase your ability to think critically, adapt to change, work effectively in a team, and deliver value. All those skills are essential for a great Scrum Master.
All right, I'm definitely feeling more confident about this interview now. Let's do a quick recap. So when they hit me with that dreaded "sell me on Scrum" question, I should start by defining Scrum in a way that highlights its value in today's crazy, complex business world.
Right. And then you'll back that up with those compelling real-world examples. Spotify, ING Bank, Microsoft, John Deere. Choose the ones that resonate most with you and that you can speak about with genuine passion and insight.
And then, to really drive it home, I'll tie it all together by sharing my personal experiences and insights, showing that I've not only studied Scrum, but have actually seen it work, and I'm excited to use it to drive success.
You nailed it. Be authentic, be enthusiastic, and let that passion for Scrum shine through.
This has been so helpful. Thanks for sharing your expertise and for giving me the confidence to rock that interview.
You're going to do great. Remember, a deep understanding of Scrum, those compelling examples, and your personal insights are your recipe for success. Now go out there and knock them dead.